Hi everyone, I'm Mommy Black and I'm part of the Little Baby Boo Nursery. And today we're going to be talking about the classifications of the ABDL community. Over the past few years, we've had the opportunity to experience a wide range of folks who make up the ABDL community. Because we own an adult nursery, we've met adult babies and diaper lovers through one-on-one sessions. We've played with a lot of littles through our littles parties. We've interacted with other people in the community at some of the meetups and at conventions. And we've also lived the lifestyle with our own personal relationships. Because we're in this unique position to learn so much about the community and so many different aspects about the community, we felt like it was our duty to let people know what we found. So over the years, we've noticed that there are some really interesting patterns that are happening, and we want to kind of go over those with you. You might actually be surprised by what we found because there's a lot of misconception about what's going on in the ABDL community. I think that's because a lot of the vloggers and the people that are on YouTube are coming from their own perspective instead of having an overview of what's going on with the community. But like I mentioned before, we've met a lot of the different segments and we can kind of tell you they're very, very different from one another, which was surprising for us to learn too. So we've learned that there are three kind of major subsets or groups or characteristics that people have. And so I want to go over that with you today. I think it's fascinating and hopefully you will too. So we found three groups basically, and these groups can be very different from one another with entirely different drives. But also note that there are portions of this Venn diagram that indicate two groups or even three groups combining. The first group consists of age-regressors. We call this the therapeutic-based cluster. They are regressive and non-sexual. Because we're a non-sexual nursery, this type of person is who we mostly see during our one-on-one sessions. They consist of childhood trauma survivors and folks affected by PTSD or post-traumatic stress disorder. So let's talk about what that means. This is a group that doesn't really get a lot of attention in our community because they tend not to want to talk about stuff, and people are just assuming that everything is kink-based. So if you're coming from a kink-based background, you might not understand how people can have a non-sexual attachment to age regression. So these, like I said, these are the folks who come in and who just want to be loved unconditionally and cuddled and nurtured. And it's amazing. And it's such a fantastic form of therapy for these folks because as much therapy that you can get one-on-one in speaking with someone, there's something completely different about having the cuddle factor, for lack of better words, the touch factor, having those endorphins go off when you're cuddling someone and just telling them that you love them. And that's kind of what we do. And that's, like I said, who we see. So these folks will use adult diapers as a way to help them regress to a safe space. But in this part of the diagram, they don't necessarily need diapers, but it's a way to kind of help them. So they may or may not use diapers in that. Then we have the second group, which consists of age play fetishists. We call this the kink-based cluster. They are non-regressive and sexual. This is the group that gets most of the attention from the media and tends to be the folks who people think about when they think of the ABDL lifestyle. So what's different about the kink-based cluster is that they use diapers as a form of control and a form of power play. So for them, it can be used as degradation or keeping your partner in line, just all kinds of fun like sexual play. But because there is that sexual component, I think that's where a lot of the shame comes from, because most people are thinking that this is what ABDL, the community, is all about. And so anytime you have anything sexual, people are going to shame you for it, no matter what it is. The third group consists of people who have a physical or psychological need to wear diapers. We call this the Kinesthetic-Based cluster. They are non-regressive and non-sexual. You're wondering, then who are these people? Well, they're the folks who wear diapers because they're incontinent or because wearing diapers presents a comforting feeling that decreases anxiety. They're basically just the adult diaper wearers, okay? So they use, like I said, diapers because they need them to either feel more secure if they have incontinence issues. They feel more secure wearing at night or during the day because they don't want to leak. This is interesting too. We find that there are a lot of autistic people who fall into this category because they like the feeling of just being wrapped and being kind of held. And it's similar to like the weighted blankets, the feeling of just being like secure. In this Venn diagram, you'll see these areas where like two sections are combined. With the kinesthetic-based cluster, if you combine that with the therapeutic-based, we find a lot of our autistic littles. So when they come in, it's a really interesting dynamic because a lot of times in real life, in everyday activities, they're not really comfortable with like eye contact and stuff. But in this experience, it's not, you don't have to have the eye contact necessarily, but they allow themselves to just kind of let go and just be loved. And for some reason, that really works. So we thought that was really interesting. Also, another thing that we found out is that there's a really interesting connection with preemies or premature babies that I think would make for a fascinating study, actually, because we found that there's something, and I don't know if it's when they're first born, that they're not having that physical attachment that they need when they're first born, but we have a lot of preemies who come in who really like that. It's that same sort of kinesthetic feeling of being wrapped. A lot of them will actually have like developmental issues too, where there's some issue with the plumbing. So, they'll have like incontinence issues. And so that's also a help. And then they also really, really like that kind of comfort. Most people like that kind of comfort, but for them, it's just something completely unique and different. So we thought that was really interesting. We find that the majority of littles actually fall within all three, like the section of the diagram where all three meet. So what that means is that the majority of littles are age-regressors, are interested in some sort of kink involved. And that makes sense because we're all adults, and when we are interacting or if we're doing anything fun, it's going to go sexual because we're adults and we're kinky. And then they also need the adult diapers in order to bring them to an age-regress state. So that's the majority of littles right there in the middle. That's just all of these fun things. Then at the top little wedge, you'll see that that's where the littles are that don't wear diapers. They don't necessarily wear diapers at all. They don't need diapers to regress. And then over on the kink-based cluster and the kinesthetic-based clusters, that juncture right there, those are the diaper-lovers. So what that's basically saying is that diapers turn them on, but they also need diapers in order to be turned on. As you can see, they all have very different drives and motivations for being in the ABDL community. It's important that we talk about this information because people are spreading false information about who we are. That's coming from inside of the community, that's coming from outside of the community. We see vloggers referring to ABDL as solely kink-based, and that is simply not true. But again, we can't fault them because they're just coming from their own perspective. And I don't think that there have been too many people in our position where they have seen a wide variety of people in the community. So they'll either be their individuals, they'll either be either professional doms or professional mommies where they're more focused on the kink aspects and not like a therapeutic age regression, or conventions where you're just meeting other people that are kind of like-minded, or their own personal relationship, that they have. And that's a completely different dynamic. Like I mentioned before, we have our one-on-one sessions where we're able to kind of communicate one-on-one with somebody and really get into the nitty-gritty of who they are, where they come from. We have our Littles Play Parties, which is really different because that's probably about between like 10 to 20 people who come together by themselves or with their caregivers, and we play games, we eat a lot of food, and it's just a fun it's a completely different dynamic because it's more about like the social aspects of it. And then you have like the meetups, which is a little bit bigger, but then you're still in your vanilla outfits. That's different, and it's you're around people who you don't really know very well. And then you have the conventions, which are huge, over hundreds of millions of people, just kidding, just a couple hundred people. And then with the personal relationship, of course, that just is completely different. That's a whole different ball of wax, right? So we have our little fingers in all of those things. And then with my background in psychology and in research design, I think that we're able to identify, patterns, and it's just a really cool and unique situation that we're in. And so we really felt like we needed to bring it to the community because unfortunately people right now, as it goes, they're so quick to cry kink. And when that happens, we have like just recently we have ABDL stores like My Inner Baby who are being targeted unfairly because the rest of the population thinks, oh, this is just kink, this is just weird, this is whatever. And that's not true at all. And so you have people who are like in the military with like PTSD, or you have survivors of childhood abuse, traumatic stuff, that are trying to come in and find a way to just cope with life. And they're unable to do that now. And they're stigmatized because people don't understand what this is about. So that's why, again, we felt like we needed to come forward and talk about this. And there's still so much more to talk about, but I really wanted to get this information out to all of you guys. So I hope that you guys all found this as fascinating as I think it is. And if you have any comments or feedback, feel free to include them down below, because I think that this is a conversation we all need to be having. And I think that we also need to kind of open up our minds and our hearts to what is going on in this community and not just, focus on like what we've been told. Please, 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 please like and subscribe to our channel, because I really do want to be talking more about what we have found and give you guys more information about what the ABDL community is all about, because we're phenomenal. I think the more that we can talk about it, the more you'll understand that age regression and all of this stuff is really super healthy. It's a super healthy way of coping, and it's okay, and you're awesome, instead of like all of the talk from people who don't know what they're talking about. So I'm hoping that we can all kind of educate one another, come from more love and compassion for ourselves and for everyone else. So until next time, have a great day. Give yourself a big hug, and we'll see you next time. Bye.